Joe Burrow is one of the most unique talents in the NFL. In an age of freakishly athletic improvisational passers like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, Burrow is dominating defenses despite his lack of pure athleticism. He isn't 6'5" like Allen, he doesn't run a 4.4 like Jackson, and he doesn't have a rocket for an arm like Mahomes, yet he's outplaying all of them. In his last two games, Burrow has recorded 971 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a passer rating of 145.6, a completion percentage of 79%, and 11.4 yards per attempt. No matter who you're going up against, numbers like these deserve some attention. So this week, I watched a few of Burrow's recent games to figure out why he's stomping all over NFL defenses on a weekly basis. But before I get into all that, I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, Bounty Sports. Bounty Sports is a brand new daily fantasy sports platform where you can compete against other fans for cash prizes. And it's definitely the most user-friendly fantasy platform I've ever used. It's super easy to sign up, and if you use my code BILLY5 when you do, you'll get an absolutely free $5 credit put right into your account without any deposit necessary. This week, I'm participating in Bounty's NFL Week 18 Pick'em competition, and I highly recommend that you guys do the same because it's only $4 to enter, so with my code, you can enter for free. Once you enter, you go through and pick who you think is going to win every game on Sunday, no spreads, just outright winners. Here you can see me picking my Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets to clinch the AFC East. I've got the Patriots over the Dolphins because they're still fighting for the division title. I've got the Rams over the 49ers because I think that LA defensive front will be too much for Trey Lance to handle. And finally, I've got the Seahawks playing spoiler against the Cardinals in what could be Russell Wilson's last game in a Seahawks jersey. If you're more into other sports, Bounty has NCAA, NBA, NHL, UFC, and more. So use my code BILLY5 to feel it out, see how you like it with absolutely no risk involved. It should only take you a couple minutes to sign up and enter, and it's super fun. So again, that's code BILLY5 for a free $5 when you sign up. Now back to Burrow. The games I'm going to focus on are Week 12 against Pittsburgh, Week 14 against San Francisco, Week 16 against Baltimore, and Week 17 against Kansas City, because each of these defenses offers something different, and each came into their game against Cincinnati with a different game plan. Pittsburgh chose to blitz a lot, and kept the middle of the field closed most of the time against the pass, which means that they had a safety play the deep middle of the field while leaving their corners on the outside in one-on-one matchups. Here, Pittsburgh is in cover 1, which is man coverage across the board with one deep center field safety. They're sending 5 at the quarterback, and Burrow knows that the blitz is coming because the slot defender lined up over Tyler Boyd is capped, which usually means that the slot is blitzing. So Burrow keeps his tight end in to pick up the slot blitz. Cincinnati called a double go deep shot concept where the two outside receivers run go routes and the slot runs an option route that will either be a divide or a deep over depending on the defense's post-snap coverage rotation. It's first down, so Burrow wants to take a shot to either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins on the outside. Because there's only one high safety, Burrow knows that one of his receivers will have a one-on-one matchup. Jamar Chase is going up against press coverage to Burrow's left, and the center field safety Minkah Fitzpatrick is heavily cheating towards Chase. So Burrow knows pre-snap that Chase is not likely to get open if Fitzpatrick does favor that side post-snap. That leaves Higgins on the other side with a one-on-one matchup with Steelers cornerback James Pierre, who's 4 inches shorter and 30 pounds lighter than Higgins. Post-snap, Burrow keys Fitzpatrick to confirm the one-on-one matchup, then throws a perfect jump ball to Higgins and just lets him win. Burrow is so accurate with his deep ball and his receivers are so good downfield that as a defense you're taking a huge risk by leaving them one-on-one. And even if you blitz, Burrow can set his protection pre-snap and process the coverage with lightning quick speed post-snap. This was a 40-plus yard bomb, and Burrow let go of the ball in under 2.5 seconds before any of the pass rushers had a chance at getting to him. Against these middle-of-field closed looks, offenses will often try to attack the intermediate areas of the field to leave the center field safety isolated, covering nothing, which is what the Bengals do on this next play. Because Pittsburgh has been rotating into middle-of-field closed looks all game, Cincinnati is anticipating cover 3 despite the Steelers' too high safety shell. So they ran a dragon concept on the bottom of your screen with a China concept on the top. If the call is cover 3, the side that the deep center field safety comes from will be the side that Burrow throws to. So if Fitzpatrick bails, he'll throw left, and if Edmonds bails, he'll throw right. This decision needs to be made very quickly though, because these are quick developing route concepts. Post-snap, Burrow keys Fitzpatrick, sees that he's taking what's called a buzz rotation toward the line of scrimmage, and progresses to the other side of the formation to hit T. Higgins on a slant, all in under 2 seconds. Pittsburgh tried to force Burrow to make quick decisions with good timing, and he had no problem covering them up play after play. He didn't light up the stat sheet in this game because it was a blowout, but he did record a completion percentage of over 80%, and he averaged around 8 yards per attempt. In Week 14, the 49ers brought a much different challenge. They played a lot of mofo or middle of field open coverages and barely blitzed at all. They dropped into soft zone coverage to force more long developing route concepts, and relied on their very talented front four to get pressure before those concepts could develop. By this point in the game, San Francisco had played a lot of Tampa 2, which is a 2-deep coverage that tells the middle hook defender to drop deep into the seam between the 2 deep safeties. Cincinnati countered with a dagger concept, which can shred Tampa 2 because the divide route from the inside drags the middle hook defender vertically and opens up space for the dig route underneath it. But that dig route takes a relatively long time to develop. Here, Burrow had enough time to sit in the pocket and hit that dig, but only because he stepped up as Nick Bosa closed in. I don't know how he sensed that Bosa was getting into the pocket, but he did. And because he did, he was able to pick up a 19-yard gain rather than taking a sack. Late in the fourth quarter, the Bengals were down 7 and needed Burrow to put together a 2-minute drive, and the Bengals have one of the most explosive passing offenses in the league. But taking shots against soft, mofo coverages is very difficult, especially against a team like San Francisco who is so talented up front. Just a few plays into that 2-minute drive, San Francisco again called cover 2, and Cincinnati dialed up a deep switch concept with a post route from Higgins and an out and up from Tyler Boyd. Post-snap, Burrow keeps his eyes on Higgins to hold the deep half safety inside, then connects with Boyd deep for a 30-yard gain, and again, Burrow's pocket presence is what made this throw possible. As the rush closed in, he stepped up in the pocket and delivered a perfect ball under pressure for a huge gain that set up a touchdown on the very next play. In Week 14, Burrow's pocket presence and accuracy down the field were on display, but San Francisco didn't make much of an effort to confuse him with ambiguous pre-snap looks like Baltimore did 2 weeks later. The Ravens were missing many starters with either injuries or COVID, and in an effort to compensate for those missing players, Ravens defensive coordinator Wink Martindale crowded the line of scrimmage and ran a lot of creeper pressures to try to force Burrow into a mistake. Here, the Bengals came out in an empty set with no inline tight end and no running back in the backfield, so the 5 offensive linemen are the only pass protectors. The Ravens aligned 6 defenders up on the line of scrimmage, so Burrow knows that if they all blitz, one will be unblocked into the pocket. Cincinnati called a half slide protection to the right, which tells the right side of the offensive line to slide, while the left side blocks a specific defender. The protection call left number 6, Patrick Queen, unblocked, so the left tackle, Jonah Williams, is responsible for 54, and the left guard, Quentin Spain, is responsible for 41. Post-snap, Baltimore actually brings the slot off the screen to Burrow's right, and both 54 and 6 drop into coverage. So the Ravens only brought 5, but still had a man get in unblocked because they left Jonah Williams outside blocking no one. Burrow didn't expect the slot to come because he wasn't capped by a safety pre-snap, but he stayed calm as the pressure closed in and found his hot read, Jamar Chase, for a 15-yard gain. Burrow made this look so easy when, against most quarterbacks, it could turn into a disaster. And I think this is a quality that separates Burrow from the other young QBs in the league right now. Nobody at his age demonstrates this understanding of defensive fronts and coverages, and this translates to very quick progression speed. The Ravens ran a lot of these crowded line of scrimmage looks, and even when he couldn't throw hot, Burrow did a great job of buying time to find one of his receivers downfield. Here, Baltimore again aligned 7 on the line of scrimmage, but this time Cincinnati kept 7 in protection, so throwing hot was not an option. Just before the snap, Burrow saw the strong side safety bail into a deep half, so he knew that the middle of the field would be open. Post-snap, the Ravens rushed 5 to Burrow's right, he stepped up to avoid the pressure, and hit Chase over the middle for another big gain. Some of the throws that Burrow made in this game probably wouldn't have been possible if the Ravens defense was healthy, but 525 passing yards is extremely impressive no matter who you're going up against. His footwork inside the pocket was phenomenal, and he tore apart even the most ambiguous of pre-snap looks. Last week against Kansas City, Burrow was just dropping bombs to Chase and Higgins all day, but it's not as simple as just throwing the ball up for grabs. There is nuance to these deep shots, and I'll show you a couple of plays that illustrate what I'm talking about. On this play from the red zone, Ja'Marr Chase is aligned to Burrow's right against press coverage, and Burrow wants to hit him in the end zone. But first he has to make sure that Chase is isolated against single coverage. As he takes the snap, Burrow keys Tyrann Mathieu to make sure he isn't dropping into a deep half. Then, once he identifies the single coverage, he reads the defender's leverage. Chiefs cornerback Charvarius Ward is stacking Chase, meaning he's positioning himself in between Chase and the end zone to prevent Chase from winning vertically. Burrow knows that Chase is not going to separate over the top, so he throws a perfect ball to his receiver's back shoulder for one of his 4 passing touchdowns in this game. Later, Burrow took another shot downfield to T. Higgins, and his post-snap process is similar to the last play. The Chiefs again show 2 high safeties pre-snap, so Burrow needs to key one of those safeties to confirm the single coverage. Post-snap, he sees Tyrann Mathieu drop into a deep third and gets ready to throw deep to Higgins, but this time the receiver is even with the corner. And there's an old phrase popularized back in the 60s in reference to NFL legend Lance Allworth that says, "If he's even, he's leaving." Burrow saw that Higgins was even with the corner, so instead of trying to throw back shoulder, he led his receiver vertically and let him win over the top. Kansas City left the outside receivers one-on-one a lot, which is never a good plan against this Bengals offense, but 2 of Burrow's 4 touchdowns were on plays where KC was in cover 2. So it's hard to blame them for playing more cover 1 and cover 3 in this game. If you close the middle of the field and leave those receivers one-on-one, Burrow will exploit those matchups relentlessly. If you sit in soft zone coverage, Burrow will buy enough time to let his route concepts develop, and if you try to confuse him with tough pre-snap looks, he'll prepare for whatever blitz you're sending and exploit it post-snap. He isn't a freak athlete like Jackson, Allen, or Mahomes, but he does possess the athletic tools to make plays off script even when the defense does everything right. This Bengals offense is a problem, and the future is bright, but they're a threat right now. Burrow is on fire, Chase is damn near unguardable, the offensive line is still not great, but much better than it was last year, and the AFC is such a mess that I would not be surprised to see this team make some noise in the playoffs. I chose to break this down by game because every week we're seeing something different from Burrow and this offense, and boy is it fun to watch. But that's all I've got for today. My Twitter, Patreon, TikTok, all that stuff is down in the description, so check those out if that interests you. As of now, it looks like next week will be a long overdue look at Cooper Kupp. So until then, cheers.